Hello and welcome to Liberty Wolf number 44. My name is Zach Strong. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Today's a good day. It's morning in America. But for some people, it's morning in America. It's a time of great mourning and weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth for those who love to kill babies. So Marxists, feminists, socialists, amoral hedonists, irreligionists, those type of people are having a bad day. Yesterday, June 24th, 2022, the Supreme Court actually did something decent. Now, I still think it was a half measure, and I think they abdicated their true responsibility. But what they did yesterday in Dobbs v. Jackson was overturn, overrule, and discard on the ash heap of history Roe v. Wade. Hallelujah. It's a wonderful thing. Millions of precious, innocent sons and daughters of God, little babies, will live. Another generation of Americans will have a chance to live in this great country because at least half of the country is going to protect life. Thank God for that. It's wonderful. It's wonderful. But, as I said, there are people out there who are upset about this. There are people last night who were vandalizing things. In Arizona, they surrounded, the state legislature. And people are calling it an insurrection. Well, you might as well call it an insurrection if what happened on January 6th, people walking through the Capitol building, because they're angry that the election was stolen, which it was, and any honest person admits that, that is called an insurrection, the greatest event in history. But in reality, what happened last night, that's more of an insurrection. You had angry people show up at all the so-called conservative justices' houses, and there was actually a group called SCOTUS 6 that published the private details and addresses of all these justices. That's illegal. That's called intimidation, first of all. Second of all, it violates privacy. Third of all, it's done with the intent to harm or otherwise, like I said, intimidate. And so this isn't good. We've already had one person who was arrested trying to, or with a plan. I shouldn't say trying to per se, because they weren't in the act, but they were in the process, and they had all the weapons to kill Justice Kavanaugh, right? How was that? 2 weeks ago? Deranged, lunatic, young guy. So this is a very real threat here, okay? The leftists, the Marxists. I don't really like the term leftist. I use it sometimes, but really left and right, that's a misnomer. It's not really accurate. It's right and wrong. You have pro-liberty side of things, and then you have the pro-tyranny side of things. And these people, the feminists, the Marxists, the liberals, they're on the pro-tyranny side. They're collectivists. They don't care about rights. They exalt the government above all else. They don't care about rule of law or about your choice. They're so-called pro-choice people, but they actually don't care about choice at all. And so this brings us back to the opinion that was given yesterday. They're not rulings by the court, by the way. They're opinions, and they can be disregarded in a great number of cases. They can and should be disregarded. Just like Andrew Jackson said, I don't care what you do. I'm not going to follow you. We're co-equal branches of government. We don't have to listen to you. And I fully agree with that, depending on the case. And not just depending on something I agree with, but depending on what the Constitution agrees with. I think that's the standard. And so, anyhow, yesterday what the Supreme Court did is, yes, they overruled Roe v. Wade. But it wasn't a specific ruling about Roe v. Wade per se. What it was is this a federal issue or is this a state issue? Now, on my website, theamericancitadel.com, I just put out an article days ago called "What is Federal, What is State?" And in a lengthy exposition, I went through and talked about that and kind of the origin of the Declaration of Independence. And at the end, I came back to abortion. Now I said, all this now, this context, let's talk about abortion. Is this a federal issue or is this a state issue? Because of the leaked case or the leaked opinion before indicated that the Supreme Court was going to say this is a state issue and kick it back to the states. I disagree with that very emphatically, because what's the purpose of government if not to defend life? Life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. Weren't those three declared to be self-evident rights from our Creator in the Declaration of Independence? Yes, in fact, they were. It's right there. Everyone can quote that line, at least that part. Unfortunately, they don't know the rest, but they can quote that part. Okay? All men are created equal and endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. So, those rights supersede government. They predate government. They're given by God, by nature, if you will. Right? The laws of nature and of nature's God. Okay? And so, those are fundamental. Now people say, oh, that's just the Declaration of Independence. A lot of people today say it has no legal weight. Actually, it does. And it was used in court rulings and opinions for years and years and decades and a couple centuries, basically. Today, it's not used as much today. Repeating myself. But it does have legal weight. It's considered it's the first of the 4 organic laws of the United States, of the American people. So think about it. This was a declaration unanimously made by the representatives of the colonies, the states, and when it was made, it created the first U.S. government. And so, in other words, the unanimous act of the first U.S. government was to declare life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness to be self-evident, inalienable rights, that it was the purpose of government to defend. And it goes on and specifically says that when any government does not defend those, you have not only a right but a duty to do away with that government. You can alter or abolish it and set up new guards for your future security. Okay? Read the Declaration again. It's pretty clear about these being rights and that the government has to protect them. Now, some people say, okay, yes, but the state government should. Well, again, you look at the Constitution. The Constitution, I think, you have the Declaration as the prologue. The Constitution is the body. Or you could look at them as bookends almost. Okay, one bookend, another bookend, and they hold together everything else. Okay, and so if you look at the Constitution, it says it is the supreme law of the land. And if states do something that counteracts or contradicts, I should say, the Constitution, it is null and void. It is trumped by the U.S. Constitution. Okay? That's just a fact. That's the Constitution. It's the Supremacy Clause. Now, yes, there have been different interpretations. The Bill of Rights was not universally applied to the states until after the Civil War. One of the only good things that came out of the Civil War. But if you look at the Supremacy Clause, it's very clear the Constitution and the Bill of Rights is amended, right? It's part of the Constitution. It trumps anything the states want to do. Okay? And so again, you have to look at this then. What's the preamble to the Constitution? What's the purpose of all of this? It is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and to our posterity. And so what is one of those blessings? Life. It's the most fundamental of all the blessings, and it's the very first one declared in the Declaration of Independence, which is the prologue to the Constitution. It's the real preamble to the Constitution. And so again, you have to make these logical connections. It's so self-evident, they didn't need to put it in there. They didn't think the future Americans were going to be slaughtering babies. So they didn't put an amendment saying, yeah, you have a right to life. They didn't think that was necessary because it's self-evident. It's already in the Declaration of Independence, which did have legal weight, and everyone acknowledged it, and the people's representatives acknowledged it unanimously, and it was put into effect by the actions of the American people in fighting a war for their independence based on those principles of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I mean, it's so airtight. The only thing additional you could do is add an amendment that specifically says, yes, the right to life is sacrosanct. That's all. but this is so obvious to any right-thinking person who takes 5 seconds to actually consider it. Okay, and so it is the fundamental purpose of government to defend life. If the federal, national, general government does not and cannot defend life, then really I don't understand the purpose of a government at all. It's not a state's issue, because if it was, then you could have states rule on that and say, nah, we don't really like the right to life. Can you think of what chaos that would be? One state says, no, we don't really care. Life is not sacred here in California. In New York, we don't care about life. In Illinois, life? Nah. Could you imagine a type of country like that, where half of the country, or at least sections of it, say life is not a right? Can you imagine that? Think of the total chaos that would be. You can't have states deciding this. It's not an individual state issue. It's not. You can't have your municipality declare, life doesn't matter to us. No, it doesn't matter what you think. That's what doesn't matter. It's a universal right given by the Creator, and He is higher than everyone. He set the guidelines, including life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And all governments are bound by that. And we have a constitution to protect and to guarantee a Republican-style government to everyone, and to enforce the Constitution as the supreme law of the land. Again, Declaration, part of the Constitution, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness. So again, this is airtight logic. You can't get around it. You have to really do some mental gymnastics to get around this. So now let's get back a little bit more specifically to the ruling here. So in this opinion, again, they said this is a state's issue, and so we're going to kick it back to the states, and states can now decide for themselves. And yet all the pro-choice people don't want to have that choice. They want their way or the highway. They're going to burn stuff down if they don't get what they want. Okay, that's their type of democracy. Democracy, as Karl Marx said it, is the dictatorship of the proletariat. So he said, in order to win the battle for communism, you first have to win the battle for democracy. And he explained it's a dictatorship. And democracy is evil. I have no hesitation in saying that. It's evil, and anyone who uses the term is misguided. We are a Republican style, small r, not a big R, Republican Party. Republican Party is just as guilty of betraying freedom and true limited government and rule of law as anyone else. So you look at this, what the justices did, the 6 conservative justices, they're not conservative, but what they did is kick it back to the states and say, you do it. And they use the 9th and 10th Amendments as justification, and usually that's pretty good justification for most things. It basically means if we didn't include something, the states can do it. But again, the right of life is one of those fundamental things that supersedes all other things. I mean, it's the one. If you only choose one right, it's the right to life. There's no other right that supersedes that one. Liberty is the next one. And then what is liberty? You have to get into that discussion, right? But life is the one that supersedes all others, and it has to be held sacred. And in fact, Thomas Jefferson used the word, not self-evident, he used the words sacred and undeniable in his original rough draft of the Declaration of Independence. I love that terminology, sacred and undeniable. So he put this on a holy level. It cannot be denied. You cannot refute it. It exists in a sacred realm above all human attempts at government and anything else. So again, I'm not going to talk much more about the choice issue, but it's pretty ironic that all these people are pro-choice, except when they actually have a choice. Then they demand a little panel of people that are unelected decide for everyone else. Except when that decision is not for them, then they want a different panel of other people and unelected bureaucrats to do it for them. As long as it agrees with them, they don't care what anyone else says. They don't care about rule of law. They don't care about the fact that, hey, they get to choose now. So, hey, do the right thing. Organize people and get together and go vote. Right? No. Voting is irrelevant to these people. So now, about the actual abortion side of things. This is great, again, that babies are going to be protected, because science has so clearly refuted Roe v. Wade. Roe v. Wade made all these imaginary, unscientific, untenable suppositions about what life is, when it begins, and all these different things. And science has progressed and has refuted all of them. You see pictures and ultrasounds of babies dancing, laughing, sucking their thumb. We know that babies feel pain. We know that they're babies, they're human beings. There's no other time in biology that life can begin except at conception. What other time? Is it 20 weeks? No, it's clearly before that. Is it 36 weeks? No. Long time before that. Is it when they're finally born and come out of the woman's body? No, obviously it was before that. So when does it begin? You can't pinpoint any other time except at conception. That's the only time. And so science has thoroughly proven this. So all these people who want abortion, and they tried to point to science, no, actually they're anti-science. There is a scientific consensus as one of the few that exists. There's no consensus on so-called climate change, for example. You have tens of thousands of scientists who have signed petitions saying this is bunk. This is a total lie. However, there is a scientific consensus among any honest scientist, and it's all in all the textbooks, in all the biology books, it's in all the research papers. It's there. You can't refute it, that life begins at conception. And egg, sperm, you put them together. It doesn't happen later. It happens then. And so that part of Roe v. Wade is untenable, it's unfounded, it's unsupportable. So how can you defend the rest of it? Oh, but it's a right. No, it's not a right. It's never been a right to take someone else's life. And so if you agree, scientifically or religiously or whatever rationale you want to use, that this is a life after conception, then what you're doing is taking a life. And it's not your right to take a life unless that person has violated your rights. Then you can. If someone's trying to kill you, you have a right to kill them in self-defense. If someone commits treason and betrays a nation and puts a nation in harm, in jeopardy, then a nation has a right to take that person and put them to death. If someone murders someone, if someone, I think rapists deserve death, pedophiles, there are different situations where someone, by their voluntary act, violated the equal rights of another person, then that can forfeit their own rights. So society or an individual can take a life in that case. But barring those fairly limited situations, you do not have a right to take a life. This is not your body, it's not your choice. I don't know how this logic doesn't penetrate a woman's skull. Okay, or a man too, there are men, of course. You have a body here, and it's holding this other body inside of it. Okay, that other little body, that other living life inside of you is a person with 5 fingers on this hand, 5 fingers on that hand, 2 eyes in their face, a nose, a brain, a beating heart, lungs. It's not your body. A woman's body does not have 2 hearts, 2 sets of lungs, 20 fingers, 20 toes, multiple sets of reproductive organs, multiple brains. Women think they have the brain power of multiple people, but they don't. Okay? And this is crucial to understand. It's like the illogical arguments that are used are just really incredible. But really, you just have to get down to the basics and say, no, this is obviously not your body. It's another body. And so you don't have and it's a living life with a beating heart. And you do not have a right to take a life unless in self-defense or one of those other situations. Okay? You don't have that right. That's not conferred upon you by anyone. So if it's not a right, if it involves another body, not your body, if it involves another body and another life, then what can you conclude? You don't have authority over that. That's not a right. Goodbye, Roe v. Wade. So the science is untenable. The logic about rights is unsupportable. It has no leg to stand on. There is no precedent before Roe v. Wade. In fact, the precedent was quite the opposite. But yeah, that didn't matter. historicity was nothing to the Roe v. Wade judicial activists. They wanted to murder people, and they pushed through this little opinion of theirs, and it has snuffed out more than 70 million American lives. That's more, almost by double, than died in World War II. You see different estimates, somewhere between 40, 50 million, some are lower, some are higher. But that's about double of what the people who died in World War II. Okay? That is a Holocaust. That's a real Holocaust. But that conflagration of death and misery is finally going to be over in some states. At least half of the country is going to say, no, we protect life, and create little pockets of liberty. Start the process of restoring our lost rights. Okay, so this is a good thing. There are already multiple states now that have banned abortion. First one, well, we had 13 states with trigger laws. So when Roe v. Wade handed down, it triggers those. Now, when it triggers them, they still have to be put into effect by the people in the state, by the governments there. Missouri was the first one to officially do it. And you have Oklahoma. Utah was one of the first. Wisconsin now. They were one of the other 13, so there were 26 states in total with some sort of laws on the books. And so Wisconsin now has halted all abortion activity. So you have a number of other states as well. Those are the ones that I did a little more reading on last night. But so it's halting. Babies, beginning yesterday, will start to be born, will be saved. Think of that. Think of how amazing that. Think of how wonderful a little baby is. How sweet, how innocent, how cute. Think of that. You can't hold a little baby in your arms and think, this is repulsive. Like this has to die. And yet that's what all these people are doing. That's what we've done to 70 plus million. It's unconscionable. It's wrong. It's evil. Totally evil. So I wrote an article yesterday. I spent most of the day doing it. I think it was a good use of my day. Called Light, Dark, and Abortion. I start out here with a quote from the Marxist, Judeo-Marxist, Chuck Schumer from New York. He said, "Today is one of the darkest days our country has ever seen. American women are having their rights taken by 5, actually 6, unelected justices on the extremist MAGA court. These justices, appointed by Republicans and presiding without accountability, have stolen the fundamental right to abortion." And so I wrote this comment. I said, imagine being so demon-possessed and enamored with murdering babies that you call today's court opinion a dark act that steals away human rights. I said, Schumer is an enemy to the American people, the Constitution, and human freedom. He's a mob-inciting revolutionary jackal that doesn't care about your human rights or the future of America. He's an Antichrist in word and deed. Tell me how you really feel, Zach. I think these people are evil. I really do. There are some people, I think, that are deluded into abortion. They feel they don't have a right. They feel they don't have another option. Their family pressures them. There have been cases where people are actually forced into abortion. I understand there are certain situations, okay, mitigating circumstances, right? But the majority of these abortions are the type that they're elective, right? So people are choosing to do them. It's not a medical necessity. They weren't raped, nothing like that. They don't have family forcing them. It's just they choose to be irresponsible and to not be a parent. They choose to kill. They choose to take a life. Yeah, they're pro-choice, all right. They choose death over life. They choose to snuff out the life of a baby. They choose to rip apart a baby inside their womb and then suck out its brains. It's brutal. It's sick. And these people like Schumer, who go out there and say this is a dark day, it's one of the darkest our nation has ever seen, that's sick. It's evil. It's malevolent. It's satanic. And so if you look at all these people, the Pelosi's, Maxine Waters of the world, Gavin Newsom. You have the three states over there on the left coast, Washington, Oregon, and California. They've joined together in an alliance. They created a multi-state committee to find out how we're going to protect abortion rights. It's not a right. You can't murder someone. That's not a right. Okay, so I'm going to find it here so I can quote it exactly. So this is from Isaiah, the book of Isaiah in the Old Testament. He was one of the great seers of all time, one of the great prophets of the Lord Jesus Christ. And he had something to say about people who think, who pervert reality and say that light is darkness and darkness is light. Right? I'm gonna find it here. Isaiah. There we go. Woe unto them that call evil good and good evil, that put darkness for light and light for darkness, that put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. Therefore as the fire devoureth the stubble, and the flame consumeth the chaff, so their root shall be as rottenness, and their blossom shall go up as dust, because they have cast away the law of the Lord of hosts, and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. That's not good. Nations and individuals fall when they reject the law of the Lord. They fall and go down slippery paths when they say this thing that's clearly good is evil. When they say that this light is dark. When they say this sweet thing is bitter. Okay, that's bad. That shows that your spirit has been so deadened, or that you are so past feeling and evil, that you are going to reject the sun when you see it and say, there's no sunshine in there. That's the definition of Antichrist. Okay? So, this is what's happening. Millions of Americans now. They're not true Americans. Americans defend the right of life and liberty and of property and of pursuit of happiness and gun rights, self-defense, all these different things. Americans defend liberty. Real Americans do. But these people have come out in droves, and they're firebombing dozens of churches and pro-life centers, and even a government office got firebombed. What do you call it when you bomb a government office building? That's terrorism, is it not? So these people are radical Marxist terrorists, and so we need to stop them. This is a threat. This is a revolutionary, violent threat against America, against the rule of law. So we have a constitutional system. That system yesterday just said the states now can choose your own laws. That's real choice. That's giving it to the sovereignty of the American people, saying you use your agency and decide. And now people are saying, no, we don't want the American people to decide. We want to decide. That is contrary to the sovereignty of the people. That is contrary to rule of law and the Constitution. That is contrary to all sanity. It's contrary to the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. Okay, this is wrong. It's bad. It's evil. It's going to overturn society. It's just one more part of that trend that's tearing everything apart. And Black Scout Survival, if you look at them up today, go on YouTube. I think it was last night. He put out a video. He's a former SEAL, I think, Navy SEAL guy, or some sort of Spec Ops guy. But anyway, I like to watch his videos. And he has a lot of good things to say. I don't always agree with him, but he's pretty good. He's a down-to-earth, average Joe who just loves his country and wants to defend it, wants to defend rights, and who is prepared to do it. And he said, I haven't watched the full video yet, but in his kind of introduction last night, he said that, look, this is going to further divide the country and split us between red and blue, and he said this is going to help us. He didn't use the word help. That's not a good word. But anyway, this is going to lead us to civil war, right? It's just one more step down the path of total division. I wrote about that last night in my article, without having seen him or anyone else say that, is that this is a sifting. You have the wheat and the tares. They're being divided. Everything's splitting. And this gives people now an opportunity to say, which side are you really on? Do you really value the right to life and these God-given, inalienable, self-evident rights? Do you truly respect those? If not, go live in California. Go live in Oregon and Washington and New York. Go to Illinois. Get out of sane America that actually cares about the lives of the innocent babies. Okay? Get out of those parts of America and go to your hellhole sections and see how well it works out for you. Okay? My dad has often said that why don't we just divide everyone? All the liberals, if they think the socialistic system is so great, go to California. Just move there, put up a wall, and wait 5 years and see which side does better after 5 years. They would be clamoring to get over that wall to get back into real America, into the heartland, where there's sanity, where people still, by the millions, care about freedom, rule of law, the U.S. Constitution, self-governance. Okay, they care about these things. They might not be so well informed sometimes, and they might make stupid decisions when they vote, keep voting for the same dumb parties, the Republicans, over and over. But they are still good at heart. And so you have tens of millions of good people left who care about babies, who don't want to slaughter people, who care about your right to speak out and say something ridiculously stupid. They care about those rights. But part of the country doesn't. They want it their way, and that's all. They want conformity and collectivism. They don't care about your individuality or your individual God-given rights. They don't care. They want tyranny. They want the dictatorship of the proletariat. They want to crush all opposition. They would like people like me to be silenced. Okay, they use Facebook and all these different means to do it. And yet, we still see that there is some light at the end of the tunnel, right? Here's the secret. Our side wins in the end. If I didn't believe that with all my heart and soul, I wouldn't be wasting my time doing this. I'd go do something that I think is more valuable. But I don't think there are many things more valuable. This really affects souls. One day you're going to go stand before God, each of you, and you are going to account for your opinion on human agency, liberty, rights, and freedom. People think that's not relevant. You can be a good Christian and not think about these issues. No, you can't. This is the core issue. Christ came to give freedom to people. The freedom to choose, the freedom to be accountable for their own sins and actions. He came to give liberty. In the scriptures, it's called the gospel of liberty. I, the Lord, have made you free. Right? He uses this terminology about freedom and liberty. And so he gives liberty. That's what the gospel of Jesus Christ is all about. And we are going to account for that one day. We're going to account for it. And so we need to be very aware of which side of the equation we're standing on. And so we need to hold the line, those of us who have a sane view of life, who understand and appreciate life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, property, self-defense, jury trial, all these different pieces of the liberty puzzle. We need to stand in the gap and hold the line, because this is just the beginning, as all the crazy raving Democrats said yesterday. This is just the beginning. This is the start of the war. This is not the conclusion. Don't get soft now. Don't say, oh, we won. No, it was only a half measure, in my opinion, because half of the country is still going to be slaughtering babies. But it is a step in the right direction. Alex Jones said, God sees our hearts and sees that we want to go in the right direction. We're not there yet, but we're going in the right direction. Okay, Glenn Beck, I love his reaction. His was my favorite reaction of the day. I watched his thing, and when this happened live, he kind of teared up. He was like, he didn't really know what to say, and he said, God, please hear us. Like, forgive us. We're trying to do the right thing. And that's true. There are millions of us who still care in America. So many people criticize America abroad and think that we're just out of our minds and we're crazy because they see what Hollywood wants everyone to see. They see the gay pride parades and everyone bowing down to the Black Lives Matter, and they see all this insane stuff, and they see the chaos, but they don't see true Americana. They don't see real rugged individualism. They don't see the heartland, in the heartland, the tens of millions of good Christian folks. They don't see that. They don't see that in the rural areas, you break down, someone's not going to rob you. They're going to come to you and say, hey, can I help you out? They don't see that when you move into a new house, people bring you food and cookies and come over and help you move your stuff in. They don't see that the community or churches band together and chop wood for people in the community so that they have wood for their fireplaces during the winter. They don't see all these wonderful things. They don't see the charity, the hundreds of billions of dollars a year that American private citizens donate abroad to charities because they care, because they're good people. They don't see that. The evil is more vocal. It always has been. Think of Jesus. Who is more vocal, Jesus or the Pharisees who called him, who said he's possessed by the devil? They were. They created a ruckus. They tried to stone him. He had to escape multiple times. Now, he could stand up for himself, and he did at times. But the way the Lord works is through quiet steadiness, through that inner strength and conviction, not yelling with a megaphone to force people to listen. Okay, so even though our side is not as vocal, that's kind of sad, but even though we're not as vocal, we're still here. And we've lost a lot of ground. We've lost a lot of liberty. Our Constitution's hanging by a thread. We're on the verge of losing everything. We're on the verge of being shut down. The energy sector is being shut down. We're on the verge of a nuclear war, which is coming. Prepare for it. It's coming. We're on the verge of an international famine, another Holodomor, just like the slaughter in the Ukraine that the Soviet Union engineered. Okay, all this stuff is coming. More plagues will be released. More horrors, more school shootings will be staged. These things will happen. But they're only going to happen because there's resistance. The devil doesn't fight you too strongly if you're not resisting him. Okay, that's just a fact. You fight against the person that's putting up the resistance. Think of criminal psychology. You break into a home, you see two people cowering in a corner, or see a guy rushing to stop you. Which one are you going to worry about? You don't care about the people over in the corner. They're not a threat to you. You aim at the guy coming towards you. So right now, we've had the criminal maniac break into our home, and there are still millions of us that are rushing to go stop that threat. But he wants to neutralize us so that he can ransack the home and rape the women and sacrifice the children to Moloch. Okay, we need to stand up and stop it. Fire fights fire. So stand up. This is a good step in the right direction. Now, focus on your states. Focus on getting good people elected locally. Run for office if you have to. We need good people to stand up. Go to your school board if your children are still unfortunate enough to be there, and make sure the school board hears you. Go to your local sheriff and make sure he's a constitutional sheriff. Go to the county. Go to anyone locally, to the media, write editorials, any of those things. Write articles, group together, network with people, with other patriots. You had committees of correspondence and all these different groups in the early American era before the Revolution that were linking people together, spreading ideas, getting us on the same page of liberty, that live free or die mentality, or the join or die, as they used to say it. Remember the picture of the snake? Okay, we need to do this. Roe v. Wade is now dead. Now what are we going to do? We're going to just celebrate and lose the momentum, or are we going to push this forward? I hope we'll push it forward. I know that's what I'm going to do. I already wrote an article. Now I have a podcast that's coming out here. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I already have another article started about abortion. Now it's the time to secure our right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. We've lost them. We need to get them back. We're making baby steps. We need to humble ourselves before God and show him that we're trying to do this. God doesn't help a nation that doesn't help itself. He doesn't help individuals that don't help themselves either, that won't actually do something. He will not stand by and just throw blessings on you. Oh, that guy's doing nothing. Blessings, rewards, freedom, prosperity, happiness. It doesn't happen that way. You have to do something. Effort is involved. Patriotism is effort. It's hard work. Don't be a sunshine patriot. Don't just bask in the glory of this decision. When it gets hard, when the radicals march in the streets and firebomb things and burn things down, and when they come for you, as they say they will, when they push hard in November in the elections, when they try to come back and codify this into law, as Beijing Biden promised to do. He said, we're going to take over the Senate this midterm, and we're going to codify abortion into law. Okay? When they come for you, what are you going to do? That's where you're going to show your mettle. Right there. I urge you to stand tall for life, for liberty, for pursuit of happiness, for the future generation that needs you. This is what it's all about. This is the fight of our lives. This is the end game. Super Bowl, that doesn't matter. NBA Finals, who cares? What the TikTok person said in their latest video doesn't matter. What matters is liberty, and if you can talk about liberty intelligently, you can win souls, and that can save lives, and that can make a nation happy and prosperous. Don't we want that? Don't we want to make America great again? There are some people who don't, so guard yourself and your family against them. And also, get on your knees and say thank you to God. Give a prayer of gratitude for this step in the right direction. That there will be millions of babies who will now come to this country, this wonderful, blessed country, and enjoy good homes because of 6 justices who, though I don't think they're really conservative, they did the right thing in this case and gave it to the American people to decide where they truly stand. So, America, where do you stand? I'm going to close. I'm Zach Strong. Look at my website, theamericancitadel.com. Remember, Sic Semper Tyrannis. Long live liberty.